Hello, hello. It's Blue coming to you live from the grassy knoll to talk about the first player here in the US of A to snipe the competition and become a world championship qualifier. That's right, it's Rinku. The winner of the Dallas World Championship Qualifier joins us for all the insight we could possibly ask for, whether it's how they went from a top Magic player to top Alter player, despite missing Beyond the Gates entirely. RIP Waru. How the Bravos faction meta became so strong here in North America, and how even you can win a WCQ as long as you watch hours of gameplay for about a month ahead of time. That and so much more in a long but oh so captivating WCQ edition of Top Cut Talk. As always, subscribe, like, and hit the bell because if you don't, like those old chain emails, you will die in 7 days. Just joking. Unless. Anyway, time for a second intro, Blue. Hello, hello, everyone. Back again for the continuation of our special WCQ edition of Top Cut Talk. This time with a NA player I've actually gotten to meet in person, and one of the first people who has seen me without glasses and a headband on and did not immediately faint from shock of my good looks. Please introduce yourself and tell us a bit how you got into Altered.
All right. Hi, I'm Rinku, or it's Rinku when it comes to Altered. If you want to follow me or have known me from other games, you might have heard me referred to as WatchWolf92, or Jonathan works as well. And the way I got into Altered was I was researching different board games. So for my line of work, I'm always looking for new board games to use for educational purposes. And I was watching a bunch of Essen and a bunch of other streams. And there's a lot of Alter that was popping up, and it sounded like it was Magic adjacent, which is a game I've played most of my life, and figured some skills might transfer over. But it definitely caught my eye. But at the time, we didn't have a full rule book for it. So I kept an eye out for the Kickstarter, and I was thinking about backing it. And there was an article that Cedric Phillips wrote, who really enjoys Magic and pretty much endorsed the game from being flown out to Equinox and trying it out. And I also heard that Justin Parnell was also involved, who I've known through the Starsea Games series in Magic. So I figured if he's associated with something like this, it's probably like the real deal. And just I watched one game playthrough, and I'm like, that's what I want to be doing. So I backed the Kickstarter, and then yeah, I guess I got like whatever tier had like four like Kickstarter boxes and like two theme decks or whatnot. Um, so I got my product. Um, and then I actually didn't know that online play started. I thought that there would be louder like signals that things have started both online and in person. But I didn't realize until I think it was the week before Trial by Frost pre-releases. So this is post Waru, that things have started. And I was just like, oh my God, like I didn't even make it in time for like season one of the Adventure Pass because I just didn't know. So yeah, I guess Trial by Frost pre-release was really my first event. And maybe what keeps me coming back for more is, experiencing a fondness, but not Waru. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, you miss out on the whole first half of things at this point then with, No Beyond the Gates by itself. You didn't get the basic idea of the game, but, I did hear you mention other card games that you may have played with and some other people that you knew associated with card games, one of them being Magic in particular. Can you go into a little bit of background as far as Magic now that the kind of secret is out as far as some stuff that you have done prior to Altered is
Yeah.
concerned? And,
Yeah, so I come from a family that's played a lot of games. I wouldn't consider my parents like heavy gamers, but for instance, in college, they would play backgammon every day, and the loser would have to do dishes and take out the trash. And my mom would lose about 6 days a week. And, a lot of people would complain, like, this is not fair. He's like taking advantage of you. And she's like, no, obviously I'm losing for like a reason. So, like, it is fair. So that's kind of the upbringing I had. My mom didn't know how to go easy on me on games. So she would like maybe deal herself randomly instead of like choosing a setup. But so I learned how to play chess when I was really young, maybe like 3 or 4. I played Pokemon TCG when the base set came out, but I started playing Magic when I was 7. And then I kind of just stuck with it the whole time. I was really enamored by it. But also, I would still try playing other games, but Magic was kind of a constant throughout my life. Ironically, I learned how to play Magic a lot from playing Chandelar, which was like this Windows 98 like RPG where you just like walk around and you have like terrible cards and stuff, and then you can get like the Power 9, which is like, the holy grail of Magic cards, which was kind of cool. Um, yeah, and then I actually qualified for my first pro tour when I was 14. No, when I was 16. My first like top at another event was at 14. So 16, but being top 100 in the world, which was really cool. But I didn't do well at that event. And most pro Magic players, usually their second pro tour is in like close proximity to their first. I actually had about, I think it was an 8-year gap between my first and second pro tour. So I kind of just thought it was a fluke, and I really like, tried training and like being very hard on myself, but really just enjoying the game for what it was. And I figured the results would just come later. Then I was pretty much a pro player from the end of 2016 to the pandemic, which was cool. I was top 100 in the world on various occasions, and yeah, was well known for playing a few decks. If you play Magic, I was known for playing Jeskai Bad Cards or Jeskai Control in Modern and Grixis Delver in yeah, so that was in Modern, and then Grixis Delver in Legacy. So, but yeah, after the pandemic, I realized like so much of the game for me, despite being known for playing really good Magic Online, or being like a Magic Online grinder, I really wanted the in-person like interactions. So I kind of fell off the train in the pandemic and haven't put the effort to go back on. So
Got
uh, I'm perhaps a little bit different than most people, but my start in Magic Online was actually they give you the ability to rewatch any replays of any tournaments. So I just watched tons of Magic and watched certain players that I like their style more and whatnot. Kind of like I think Magnus Carlsen has probably said that he like can recite just like games of chess and stuff like that. I was kind of like that, but for like Magic Online replays. And then I started playing later and really just grinding and kind of growing from there. Ironically, so yeah, I mentioned the trial by for Osprey release. Even after that, I still didn't go to locals. I actually had to go to Australia for work, and I then discovered 39 cards. That was the next thing that I discovered. So
shout
I'm
out,
just
shout
looking at like, yeah, yeah, it's so great. Like if it wasn't for 39 cards, I probably wouldn't have played online events because those 39 cards that helped me realize there's online events. And then I would like click on the Discord links and stuff, then join those, then realize there's like BGA, which I do use for work. So I was already familiar with the site. Um, and then I just literally watched replays of every single AWOL, AQZ event, like whatnot. And if anyone was X1 or better, I watched literally all their matches and sometimes multiple times. I did that for probably a month before I played my first AWOL, which is kind of funny because the story ends up going that I joined like towards the end of the season. And I qualified for like Kohlrabi's like Ace event by losing the finals of my first Ace qualifier. And then I also ended up top fouring the AWOL Invitational Season 2. And that was all within, I think, less than a month of starting to play competitively. But between like already having some good heuristics for Magic. But for me, it's like one of my friends jokes that like I'm just a real life AI or something where you just have like a training set and then I just like can interpret it from there or whatever. But yeah, so really the online component allowed me probably to qualify for Worlds, honestly. Like I don't think anyone that started that late can expect to be that good so
uh,
soon.
get into more things as far as the event that you recently participated in, and not only participated in, but also became the first champion for a World Championship qualifier here in the US and North America. You have participated in online events, like you mentioned, as far as Altered's concerned, and realistically, now that the secret is somewhat out from your past experience in other TCGs, tell us how this event compares to your other experiences.
Mm.
What is different about the event itself and the people, or even yourself from your previous stuff?
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I feel like when I talked to a few people from, say, Europe, a lot of them were like, "Oh yeah, that was just like a small qualifier with like no one there." But there's a sense of like survivorship bias in terms of like people in the States choosing to play. Like, so such a large percentage of the people there flew there and were like BGA grinders. Like I recognize so many of the names. So even though it was a small tournament, it was very dense. Like there were no real free rounds. So the vibe though was I think it did a good job of like combining the casual with like the competitive, which is I think what Equinox is going for. But what was really nice was people were like respectful and willing to kind of just um, like make friends. Like the game, as you noted, is still young, so it's a lot about like building community. Like there were some really flattering moments where, for instance, like one person that I've talked to online was literally just going up to groups of people and being like, "Are any of you Rinku?" And then like went to another group and then eventually like found Chili who like exposed me and just like, "Yeah, you probably want to talk to that guy." And then we end up playing the finals, which is awesome.
Nice.
But yeah, so in terms of like the air, I would say yeah, it's like maybe it's because the game is so young, or maybe it's because like anyone that's playing it has a joy for the game. Whereas sometimes, unfortunately, in games like Magic, people have put so much time into it that they really just want victories or the feeling of winning. But like in a game of variance, you're not always going to get that. It was clear everyone here loved Altered and wants to see it succeed. So sometimes when you play against like certain types of Magic grinders, they kind of wear something with them that you can like feel at the table, or like it affects the atmosphere a little. Something I do personally try to offset by, there are times where I'm being really serious and playing, but like ultimately it's a game, and usually I just try to match my opponents. So the more lively they are, I could be lively and see how they like respond. But I will say that like top cut though, so top eight onwards, that felt like all the like we happened to stream all of my top eight matches. Thank you for Phobia for being, on camera so much in the Swiss. But like that felt just like when I was on camera in Magic tournaments. Like because when you're on camera, it's like you are kind of just like siloed off, and you have like the pressure of all these people watching, and that people are like, spectating, commenting on your matches and every single play you make. So I would say once we got to top cut, it's like, okay, yeah, this is real. So
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I mean, I've heard a bunch of random stories about side talk during games, during this event. Simon, even during Top Cut, Simon was telling me you guys were bantering a little bit
yeah.
during the finals match, which we can talk about a little bit later. But
Mhm.
one thing that kind of stuck with me that when we were speaking after you winning in general was you mentioned something about yourself where this wasn't something, or this event wouldn't be something that you would typically do kind of on a whim. And that kinda stuck with me, so I was just curious with that, what changed from yourself from, let's say, COVID times when you stopped doing Magic or something to now
Mhm.
to want to do something like this? And, I mean, be benefiting from it by getting a spot at the World Championship at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too like philosophical, but I guess in some ways I just have a different perspective of like money and experiences now. So when I was more recently out of college, and I grew up with like a fairly like frugal upbringing, or minimally like finance conscious. Like I knew what a Roth IRA was when I was like 8. So like not not everyone has the same views. So like I'm always maxing out retirement accounts and all this other stuff.
Shout out to
Yeah,
the Moth IRA, by the way.
yeah, that's a good one. Um, so right, so just being very money conscious. So I would always think about like the expected value of like different tournaments. So like if I pay a $30 entry fee and I think I am like this good at the game, what's my probability of doing well? And I didn't. I started traveling maybe freshman year of college, but I was also a writer for Star City Games, so I kind of like subsidized that. So I help like justify it. But overall, I kind of even when I was pretty regarded as one of the better Magic players in like a region or a subset of areas, I still wouldn't like fly to events because the cost of the flight and then the hotel and all that stuff is just like if you view it from expected value lens, it just never works out well for you. So I might as well just like wait and pick my shots that are like closer to home or online tournaments, things that had specifically less monetary costs associated with it. Um, so then I guess so I'm 33. I've worked since after college, and I guess now in this stage of my life, um, especially given my frugal tendencies, along with like investing very like aggressively in my retirement accounts in future, it's just like, but what is all this for? And then a lot of people are like, oh well, like I want money that I could travel around the world and do all this stuff. And don't get me wrong, there's like a few places that I am interested in visiting, but from a higher level, um, I remember talking to people about how it felt to be on camera. I don't know if I phrased it this way with you, but when I'm there, I like feel at home in a way that I can only feel in that moment. And like you can pay a lot of money and still not make top cut of events. So it's like I'm this weird combination of like at home and grateful for every moment I'm there. Like once I started playing the top eight, I'm like, I hope I'm on camera every round, and I hope I get to just play the maximum amount of matches. Like if you told me it was the top 32 and I had to play every round, I would have been like stoked. So yeah, I guess the motivations come from a different spot. So I realized that, you know, at some point I should really bet on myself. And that's something you hear a lot with people when it comes to say like entrepreneurships or like startups or anything like that. But for me, it's like I know I'm fairly good at these games, and like I feel like in some ways, maybe I owe it to myself to, I've made all these sacrifices when I was younger. And who knows, maybe I would have qualified for more events or have won more tournaments if I just went to more tournaments. Like that was something, even when I was around like the 14 to 16 range, there were other really good Magic players that would just travel across the states, and they would introduce me to someone and they're like, who is this? And then, the friend that would introduce me would say like, oh, this is Jonathan. You don't know him, but if he went to every tournament I did, I assure you he would do better than me in all of them. One. And like
Right.
I had no plans to go to Paris, and like now I'm gonna have those memories for the rest of my life. And when I think about all the times I've like traveled with my friends and done all this stuff, it's like those have paid. There's a book called Die with Zero, written by Bill Perkins, and he talks about something called memory dividends, where people think about the dividends in their investment returns, but they don't think about their like storytelling and like being able to reminisce about things. Like I met you and Cole and members of AQZ for the first time. It was just like I get to hold that with me my whole life now. Like this is fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I can agree. Getting to see me for the first time has to be stupendous. But anyway, let's get into some more stuff as far as the World Championship qualifier and everything like that. So, although this isn't necessarily the first quote unquote major event that has been held in North America as a region or the US, with the occasional event at large cons or even the first one in set one at Gamers Guild in Arizona was kind
Hmm.
of pitched as a big event at the time and holding some weight as far as who can be considered the best player in a what however you could from just the first set and not that much time in between it. But
Mhm.
this was the first official event on this side of the ocean for Equinox and Altered. Tell us your overall thoughts as far as the event specifically as a high level player. Just say like the things you liked or things you would like to see improved upon to help develop the competitive community as a whole, especially with North America and the US being considered the little brother, if you will, compared to France, and how we can all improve to make the community bigger and make Altered bigger on this side of things.
So I do think coverage is very vital to the game being able to grow. So like for instance, my girlfriend she plays Pokemon TCG, and she had a bunch of friends who I also know, and just had all of them watching the stream and they're all cheering for me, and that's great. And it's like having that sort of visibility and things that we could point back to, having almost like this archive is very useful. Like I'm sure it exists, but it's actually been hard for me to find like replays or old streams of the Waru days. Like I'm sure they exist, but I haven't been able to find them easily. So even as someone that's curious about how like the gameplay was back, so I think it's important to be recording history as it's happening. Like one thing that's really cool in Magic is to go back and watch something from the 2000s, like a Pro Tour from then, and we have like the technology for that. So and making people feel important, like all those people that have feature matches thought it was so cool to be on camera. I think. I mean, some people get very nervous or if like they punt or something like that, but on the whole, I feel like people really enjoyed that. Another thing that I think is really good, and from Equinox's perspective is like a low cost move that I'm happy that they're doing, is they don't focus so much on like how much they're giving monetarily, because that could be very difficult from like this growing company or growing game. But they find exclusives that people are finding valuable enough that they are worth money. So take like those really cool hero promos. It's like effectively they do nothing. They're just aesthetic. But people are paying what, like 100 for Teja or something like that. And it's like to be printing currency that you're giving to the players that they can choose to keep it as is, or to then just sell it to refund their trip or profit or what have you, or even like the different tumults that you can use, and the venture pass. Like all those things are, I think, the right path. Like I don't think you want to directly inject money into the game, which I think some appeals to some people, but they're doing it in different ways. Like I don't have to pay for my travel and accommodations to Paris. Like if I just got the qualification and still had to pay for it, honestly, I might not actually go. Like
Yeah.
it's so hard to justify that. So I think the money is being shifted around in different areas, but realizing that they could print out equivalent things for a much lesser cost that still has value shows that they have an understanding of also their community. Like we didn't know the price that these would settle on. Like maybe these would have been a bust and they'd be $1 each, and everyone's like, ah, it's like why do I even have these cards? So that was really cool. I think I think it's important, and I know that at like the PAX events and Gen Con and such, at least from the state side, that this has been happening, but having let's plays and getting more people involved and like really getting people through the front door, I think is the hardest part. And I know, for instance, there was like a donation box at Dallas, and really we just need to get more cards in people's hands. That way, then they could do it. Like even if they just treat it like a two-player board game and they only have like two starter decks or starter deck equivalents, like we just need more eyes on the game. I do think I know that Equinox kind of has, or I don't say I know, but from what I've heard, like Equinox has a little bit more of a stance of not supporting No Unique as much, or at least it's not in the immediate roadmap, like maybe later on. And Magic Popper didn't exist right away, which is a format that's only commons. But I do think, at least from a local scene perspective, and maybe even at these events, that way you get people going with their friends that are playing in the main event, and they're like, I just have these commons, or maybe commons and rares, like maybe having those types of things. I think another thing that could be really cool is in Magic, there's these like vintage championships. So vintage is like cards since the beginning of time, which is us right now, but not later on. And traditionally, there actually ends up being a prize if you have a deck that does not contain any of these. I think it's like 10 or 11 cards that are really the linchpin and just like broken cards in the format. So the top performing deck of that gets a prize, and the second highest gets a prize. I think at even WCQs, it would be really cool to see if you are the top performer that did not have uniques in your deck, or did not have uniques or rares, or you can have like different categories. That way, these people know that they're at a disadvantage and they're playing on a budget, but now they have something that supports them directly.
Mhm.
So I think you can have overlap there that could be really nice. And I think if any suggestion to Equinox, if people are listening, I think you don't have to support No Uniques fully, but even just having it as a nice prize. And like, sure, if everyone just wants to win and no one plays a No Unique deck, well, then fine. Like, you didn't do anything, but giving the option for people to feel like they're almost competing on different axes. Like, I didn't want to make it to Worlds anyways. I
Right.
want that medal that you get for winning the No Unique reward award or something like that.
I gotcha. Yeah, shout out to Giacomo, 2 unique champion over at the BGA qualifier, by the way. And you talked about previous events and everything like that. If you check out Blue Oak TV #ad, I try to talk about any major event that has happened since the beginning of Altered, and I think I put links to the actual streams in all the
Mm,
videos. So
thank you.
whether they're active or not, there. So I am your archive as much as possible. But either way, let's get into a little bit more of the minutia of the event itself. The Dallas World Championship Qualifier was the official last gasp, if you will, of the meta-defining hero known as Afanis Insenka. But despite that, we saw an NA meta develop, if you will, in Dallas that had more success for the Bravos faction, with half the top cut being occupied by Bravos heroes, and then it was 3 of the 4 being the top 4 placings. And I believe there was a good amount that were in the bubble as well between Kojo and Basira as far as Bravos is concerned. And on top of all of that, Lindaway was the top Ysmir faction leader hero, right?
Yeah.
So, uh, you were one of those Bravos players piloting Kojo and Budo, as far as this resurgence. My question for you past all that prologue is why did you decide to go with Kojo? I
Mm,
know every result I've seen from you is pretty much Kojo, despite an occasional Sigismar or Lindaway when you're feeling spicy.
yeah.
But why did you decide to go with that? And why do you think we saw so much success for Bravos as far as NA is concerned, when
Mm,
typically when we see in the EU meta more of a focus on Afanis or even Trace lately?
mm. Yeah, so there's a lot of parts to the question that you
Yeah.
asked. So when I first picked up the game, I chose my theme decks as a part of the Kickstarter. So I also proxied all 6 like demo decks, which are not the same as the starter decks. And the 2 that had the gameplay I enjoyed the most was actually the Bravos one and the Muna one.
Mm,
So I got those theme decks. And in Magic, a lot of pro players, their favorite color in Magic is blue. Mine is actually red. So red actually has some light translation to how it is here in Altered. except you also get like ramp, which is kind of interesting, which is not in the red color pie in Magic. So it just was very intuitive to me in terms of how Kojo played, in terms of being this kind of like aggressive deck that can kind of, okay, when Buddha's here, I'm going to try to get this advantage. And when it's not, I'm just going to try to parry and like, 1 for 1 or something like that. So the gameplay was pretty clear cut to me. And then I think just watching gameplay, I felt like this is kind of ironic, given like how I play other games, I guess, or not ironic. It's on brand, honestly, but I felt like the cards in Aphanis were too good, so I just don't want to do that. Like I feel like yes, you have to be good and you have to sequence your stuff and whatnot, but I just felt like inelegance, not quite the word I want to go for, but for lack of a better term, I'll go with it. Like I felt like yes, like obviously you like after you this time and then played Mage Dancer and now you have a billion cards and you're double advancing. Or like I did play Priest Small Step and Grand Endeavor Nerf, so like I at least have that like slice of the pie there. Um, so yeah, like when I first discovered all the heroes and was watching BGA replays, my favorites to watch were Kojo and Buddha, Fen and Crowbar, Lindaway and Ma, um, and sometimes Basira, and I mean, a lot of the good EU players were playing a lot of Sigismar and Wingspan, so I wouldn't say I like playing Sigismar, but like I do accept it's like just consistently one of the best heroes in Perswaru. Um, so yeah, for some reason the gameplay of Afanis just really didn't appeal to me. But Lindaway like felt really like cool and I guess nowadays you mentioned I have some results on a few other heroes. I actually really like Nevenka too, and who I believe to be the best player in NA, all the marbles, has a really good like really good Nevenka deck that I it makes me want to play Nevenka more too. And ironically, the way I joked, but it's kind of true, the way I actually practice for the event is I kind of have to dispel all my like creativity and other thoughts. So I did play a lot of like Lindaway and Nevenka in particular, and then Basira to practice for the event. I already put in a lot of time into Kojo, as you mentioned. So I need to kind of like be like, okay, I did try everything else, and I came to the conclusion that didn't work, and like I'll just run Kojo. But ironically, I spent a little bit more time with Nevenka because I felt like if you understand how to play Nevenka, which is I guess the most aggressive of the Lyra heroes, you actually learn how to play with cards like Ishambushi and like Bravos Pathfinder a lot better, just cards that have holes in them.
Right.
So I found my ability to like focus on the tumult to be a lot better after playing so much Nevenka. Why the metagame evolved the way it did? I mean, there were still a lot of Afanis, like a lot of top players, like
Yeah.
Silas from France and Trickster were playing Afanis. Um, also, I don't want to say his real name, but I forget his username. But the Afanis player that top aided that lost to Lindaway was also just a really good player that I've seen before.
Yeah. Infinite.
Um, yeah, Infinite. Thank you. Yeah,
Mm.
but like I said, I don't want to just
You're
say
good. You're
people.
good. We won't dox anyone yet, except unless your name's Cole,
Uh,
but I won't give his full name either.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I watched him play Afanis a lot in the tournament, and he's great too. So it's not like we didn't have Afanis and we didn't have Sigismar. Like Chile played Sigismar. There were a few that were still present. I guess yeah, and Boston Beaver was there, who's I know from Board Game Arena.
Mhm.
So who played Sigismar? So yeah, the meta like was I guess more or less what I expected. But in terms of like if you look at BGA grinders, you had like um Belteshazzar slash not a piece of meat, and then you had Vint and myself. And if you look at like just BGA ratings or like amounts of games played on like heroes or whatnot, like we were also probably some of the more seasoned players. So maybe you see them rise to the top. Now, don't get me wrong, like there were a lot of people that were very good and like also well practiced. But I think like the density of like the players that chose to play, like Phobia is also fantastic on Etsadi. So yeah,
Crazy
just like,
decklist, by the way. Jesus.
yeah, it was so awesome. Yeah, I really wish we had like a double camera match because I would have liked to see Belteshazzar against Phobia, but unfortunately they finished really quickly, so I couldn't
Yeah.
watch. Um, but yeah, so I think I think also just like maybe one thing that's interesting about the three of us, like the Kojo players in the top eight, is you can even just look at our list, but also the way we play. Like we all play like Kojo slightly differently, which is like
Mm.
pretty interesting. Where I like had a very discard heavy list. Vint ran no landmarks and has been on that for a very long time. And then Balthazar always like kind of just like is willing to play all these one ofs and like tech cards and whatnot. So yeah, it's kind of hard to justify. I know from yeah, like I mentioned earlier, some of the EU perspective, like thinking, oh, it must have been a soft tournament, therefore like this happened. But it might have been just like the density of the players that chose to play the decks. Like it's kind of unclear to me. And like I made it on breakers in eighth by like 0.34%. So like very easily we should have just had like Teja Festival in the top eight. So like I don't want to overstate like how good Bravos was for the event or something like that. Like I definitely got lucky to be there.
That in your specific deck list, there were a few things I wanted to touch on, but I'll start off with the thing that everyone usually cares about the most, the uniques.
Mm,
Bravos as a whole, from at least in my perspective, and I don't know if this is the same for everyone, hasn't had a super must-have broken unique, in my opinion, other than potentially the infinite foundry armor combo. But even that was immediately suspended as soon as it got any type of recognition, right? Um,
mhm,
so because of that, I feel like there's a lot more variance in Bravos as a faction and uniques you can use. The ones you use for this event seem to be focused a lot on board interaction and removal with a smidge of card draw because we all need a little bit of card draw, right?
mhm.
Uh, why these types of uniques in particular, and how instrumental were they for your specific type of deck list and your specific type of Kojo?
Yeah, so one thing that I think my perspective is slightly different than other people in this game is just the value of discard effects. So if you look at my list, it had 3 rare Duel of Grits, 3 mana eruptions, 2 rare, 1 common, and then 2 of my uniques discarded. Um, so a lot of people like putting a lot of stuff into sabotage, but the problem with sabotage is you usually get slightly worse stats. And since every card you're kind of playing it twice, you're like stopping that effect, but you're not spending their mana.
Mm.
So, for instance, so the commonly known as Simon Mulan. So that is a 4 cost from hand form for from reserve 2/3/2, and the relevant part is it's arrow discard a character of cost 3 or less. So the way I kind of interpret that is it's really like a light snowman or Scaldi. It's literally Scaldi in stats, or Scotty, however you pronounce that. But yeah, Scotty in stats. And then, so it's like that. And then it also has rare Duel of Grit. So I just view it as like it's all in one card. Is just, I actually played 4 Duel of Grit because I got to play with this Mulan. Um,
Barely.
yeah, so I literally did only 1 round. Like, I only saw it once in the whole tournament. I saw my other discard unique, like,
Shout out to
I
the
think
Egyptian God Card.
yeah, yeah, I did call it the Egyptian God Card on camera, which was kind of fantastic. It honestly, if you had audio, like, people would have loved it. Like, when I play against Lindaway in the top 4, like, every time they would think and they'd start making a move, I would start chanting "Maw," and then eventually they started doing it too, and just, like, we were just speaking in Maw at some point, as the game intended. But so, yeah, my Egyptian God Card, Orda Spy, was a 4 cost from hand, 3 from reserve, also Scotty stats, so 2/3/2. And this one had if you so it has Arrow Sabotage, and then from hand, if you have a landmark, it discards a character with cost 3 or less. So the hand part is the same as the Mulan, but you also got a Sabotage, which is about 2 mana's worth of stuff. But of course, you need the landmark condition, so it's not free. And then from reserve, it's rare Scotty on the reserve because it's 3 costs, 2/3/2, and then you always sabotage something, which is slightly better. So I think one thing, so you know, or you mentioned how the Bravos uniques like aren't as defining in some ways as other uniques. Like take Muna Mass Anchor. It's like okay, like you're not finding that elsewhere. I
Right.
just view it as like the Bravos cards are already good, and I want the ones that are just more like Duel of Grits and like stuff like shoved into them. The last one, which I call the Popeye 2 Fairy, because A, he qualified with a very similar Order Spy, and B, I actually bought it from him. So I joked that I bought it from him before he qualified for Worlds, and he qualified for Worlds. I'm like, oh, wait, there's like a Worlds ticket still attached to this Tooth Fairy, so I like need to run it for a while. Luckily, Freeloader didn't cash it in at SN. So It's a 3 cost from hand, 3 from reserve, 0/2/2 arrow draw card, and when it leaves the expedition zone, sabotage. So this was, as you mentioned, like clean card advantage. Honestly, really wish it didn't have the 0 and wish it had a 1 there because then it would be much better against Sigismar. So you can't just like place on the Ordis Recruit and be happy with it. But expecting a little bit more traced and just like you can kind of like it's really interesting to play like a combination of discard effects and then like leaves like the expedition zone. Like there are times where my opponents would just end up with no cards, which is pretty cool. When you're also in a very aggressive deck where I chose to play, for instance, 3 Isha so that one came from one thing I do in any card game is I hate losing the mirror. I will almost only play a deck if I think I have a good matchup in the mirror, which sounds a little bit like, I guess, haughty or like full of myself a little, but like it's actually, I try to like tech for the mirror. Like imagine we play chess, but I get to like substitute 2 pawns with like 2 more knights. And it's like, why would I not do
Right.
that? So I played against AJT's Meltdown in an event on Wednesday, and I got like destroyed in the mirror, and like I misplayed in 1 or 2 spots. But I was like trying to figure out like the flow just like didn't make sense to me. Like why was it in a situation where I like couldn't parse the board state and all this stuff? And then I ended up realizing that I will literally play as many 1 drops as I can. Not the Simon 12 drops, but 12 1 drops, but which I barely knew was a thing. But
Yeah.
it was more changing Tolarian skaters to more Ishambushis was kind of like the strategy. But really, the reason why I wanted to do that was one, I thought that the discard effects got a lot better if you can after you a little bit more. And then B, what's really cool is you can, click in your deck list to see the terrain distribution. And as a, Bravos player yourself, I'm sure you know that water tends to be like a little bit of a weak point. Like you have these mighty gins. Like if you have occlude, it like helps in Basira. But like
Yeah.
overall, like water is like your holdup. My deck list actually has 1 more water stat than forest. So I
Definitely
actually
not mountain though.
yeah. So yeah, mountains are like 12 or 13
Yeah.
more. But what I felt like was cool about that was like sometimes you might actually sacrifice card advantage or expeditions to like get someone stuck on an expedition. And I was able to do the reverse. So for instance, against Symbiosis in the top 4 on Lindaway, I actually used like 1 or 2 Ishambushis. Like the first companion side advance for us was in solo water, and actually was able to use like 1 or 2 Ishambushis to keep Maw there, which was
Mhm.
like really cool. Like I couldn't do that in such a dense way and like also fight for the other side if I didn't have that. But once again, I felt like it was a lot of the Lyra like practice that really helped me just like identify like what I was trying to accomplish there.
Yeah, definitely. And you actually kind of went into my second question there a little bit as far as your common card choices, including the Samboshi. But going into that, I assume it has a similar answer to it as far as what you've mentioned thus far. Snowman, one of in a rare
Mhm.
slot. So I assume that's more just water distribution, but also it's just an awesome card, in my opinion. And then two, the One Haven Bouncer.
Mm.
What's up with that?
Yeah, I really wanted to play Zero, but Freeloader told me I shouldn't. Um, yeah, I wanted to play Tolarian Skater over the Bouncer, and I kind of went back and forward a few times. He also didn't like the common man eruption. I think it was, yeah, I think I played Zero Skater if I recall correctly. So I cut like, I had 1 skater, 1 bouncer, and I cut the skater. So originally it's like 2 skaters or 2 bouncers, but I cut one of them for like more, some combination of them for more Ishambushis,
Yeah.
Boshis. And then, yeah, like move something to a man eruption because I wanted more ways to kill Nylum and like good uniques and mage dancers. So I wanted like a critical mass. Um, I guess sidestepping your question, then coming back to it, I feel like there's like a really interesting belief. Like the way opening hands work in this game is really interesting. So the problem is if you play not a lot of removal, then people are like, great, it's not in your opening hand, so you won't mana it. Therefore, I have like X in my deck. And I'm like, but what if you have an opening hand where you do have to mana it? Then you would like know you won't draw it. So then like what are you gonna do? Like punt the early game against something that you might not need the removal spell for? Or if you view it from the other standpoint, is I actually want to flood my deck with removal spells because, like, if you could promise me that every day 3 I draw a rare mana eruption, I would do it.
Right.
Like that is fantastic. It's a huge tempo play and usually like trades up in mana. So if you play a lot of removal spells, then you can mana them and not feel bad. And if you don't mana them, you can play the game knowing that over like some amount of time, say over 5 card draws, you're probably going to draw maybe on average X amount of removal spells. So you can actually play differently based on how much you've seen of your deck, which is kind of interesting. So the one bouncer, well, like bouncer and spy like are kind of similar. Like you
Yeah.
kind of rare shift them, um, but yeah, just like if you play enough discard cards, the sabotage is a lot worse because you're already addressing the cards on board that you want to hit. So yeah, like I kind of want to play. I'm pretty sure I ended up playing two Bravos Tracers, and I kind of want to play a third and cut the bouncer if I recall correctly.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's just I was trying to think like what am I actually going to lose to, and I was just worried about having like I think Bravos now in the NUC it's a little bit different, but I think Kojo and Bravos overall has been like pretty good in the NUC. So like if I can just eliminate both of our uniques, then like I feel like I have like a good shot. And yeah, I just think like bouncer ends up being like really clunky in a lot of spots. Like it's specifically the reserve that's like really difficult from it. So like you don't want to mess into it. You don't really want to like there was a time on camera where like havened into haven on 6 mana. I havened into haven and hit bouncer, and I was just like, yep, like that's why there's only one.
Let's go into a little bit of a recap of the event specifically in the Swiss. We've gone over a little bit as far as the Swiss and the top cut as we've talked as a
Mhm,
whole, but in the Swiss in the event, you ended up with 5-2 record,
mhm.
narrowly making the top cut by the smallest of margins. You have
Yes.
mentioned the number already. If you want to repeat it again, I know you have it memorized.
Yeah, it's 34 bips or 0.34%. I've worked in finance, so
Th-
yeah,
there-
I call it this, but yeah, so 0.34%.
yeah. So tell us what was the experience like making it past the Swiss rounds and into the top cut.
Yeah, it was, like, pretty surreal. I think it was just really interesting to, so I started off 3-0, and then I played against Silas, so the only Frenchman that was there on Afanis. And it's not like I would have won the game, but I got to a spot where I ran them down on resources a lot, and then they're, like, playing from reserve, their last magical training, they have no cards in hand. And then if they find Beauty Sleep, the game's over, and if not, I'm, like, very likely to win going into the next day, and they found Beauty Sleep, and, they played really well to get to that point, but I was feeling pretty good, honestly. Um, yeah. Also, my round 2 against Chile was pretty good, so they were playing, Sigismar, and I had probably the worst, like, opener and then the worst draw after that I could have, like, conjured from my deck, but then we ended up, like, barely making it to the arena, and then also, like, winning by exactly 1 stat, which was, like, really like 1 stat point, which was, like, pretty cool. But yeah, so then afterwards, we had, like, a lunch break, where I played Scato, like, the whole time. It's, like, this game where you have, like, ping pong balls, and you have to, like, throw them into, like, this little, like, funnel thing, and, really got the blood flowing. I don't eat particularly well at events, so I didn't. I ate, I think, like a protein bar that Chili had or something.
Right.
So then the next round I played against Lyra, like Fen Festival, and I first punted my mana, and it's funny because like my subconscious told me I was punting, but I couldn't like justify it. So my opening hand, so I was going first, so I was gonna have the Buddha, and then it was Haven Saringer. So I was keeping Haven Saringer, something else I had to keep. And then it was also either Fire Rabbit or Ishibushi. I think it was a unique that I had, probably the Egyptian God Card one, the Word of
Yeah.
Spy. So then um, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna keep this Ishibushi because I need to be able to get over water. They might try to like stick me there. I wasn't sure what build of Fen they were playing. Um, and like Fire Rabbit won't necessarily help if they like have Hathor. Like, do I really want to fleeting it? No. So then I like go to mana. I was like, wait a minute, like I think there's something obvious that like I'm not considering. And then I'm like, no. And then I like finalized my mana. So then I also misplayed by starting wrong. So I played the Haven Saringer on the other side. And then they just played Aloe Vera into my Buddha. And then now I have this
Yeah.
Ishibushi. So then since I was behind an expedition, they haven't shown a festival the whole game. Um, and I could have like pushed for winning this turn, and they had one card in their hand at the end. Or I can kill their sleep thing. I can discard their sleep thing, so that way they can't win with festival this turn. But then they have like anchored and slept enough things that I think they might win on the tumult.
Right.
So then, yeah. But if I was ahead one expedition, I 100% would have won and could just like stop the Lyra Festival kill. So then, yeah. So then I killed the thing to advance, and then I had Lyra Festival. I lost, and I was just like, man, it really stinks to finally convince myself to spend all this money on a flight and like be here and to like to punt it like that, like in two spots that are like borderline, like I don't want to say obvious, but like should have been very apparent to me. Um, So then, yeah, won the next 2 rounds. Even the next round was a nail biter against Astro Nebula, so Phobia's brother, and like they were playing like a really like rogue deck that I haven't seen before. But luckily, that was the only time I drew Simon Mulan. It didn't even have to be that card. It could have been a lot of other ones, but
Yeah.
I did play that to win that round. Um, then yeah, definitely cross my fingers.
As far as, the top 8, top cut, you did end up getting your first matchup against Silas, the player that you lost to in the Swiss, and, what was I mean, going into that matchup, you did end up winning in that top 8 matchup against Silas. Was there anything about the Swiss rounds that helped you win that? What was different when you went into the top cut comparatively to the Swiss itself? Or was it purely just a beauty sleep that knocked you out on your ass and because you did end up 2-0ing as far as
Yeah,
best of 3 in the quarterfinals there.
yeah. So I guess there's a few things. One, there's like it's weird. Like sometimes there's this pressure when you're like undefeated in the Swiss that like you almost feel like it's gonna like crash or something like that. Like I think in the history of a lot of card games, almost no one has gone literally undefeated a whole tournament, including no IDs or intentional draws, and we don't really have that in Altered. So like Silas did go 7-0. It's just like it feels kind of, there's this like pressure. And then I'm on the other side where like it's like the Olympic medals type of problem where like the gold medalist like obviously feels the best, but then the next one is the bronze medalist and then silver. I was like the bronze medalist in this, where I'm just looking at the crowd. I'm just like, I could have been any of you.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful. But I think one edge I have overall is that I have just been in this type of situation so much that like if anything, I play way better in like this situation than just like being on the floor amongst other people. Like I think, yeah, like that level of like intense concentration and like the stakes being so high just like is something I'm very comfortable with. And if anything, like causes me to thrive more. The gameplay was pretty interesting. So game one was actually kind of close, like pretty reasonable, but back and forward. But I kind of just like applied enough pressure. I think like a key turn was, I think it's day three. I like mana eruption to Nylum, which like people don't necessarily do as aggressively. But yeah, I think that was like the way that they really pull ahead in advantage, like hard advantage. The second one was actually really funny. So in game two, so on my flight, when I was still working on my deck, I literally worked on my deck until 11:50 local time, I think. But I spent the whole flight literally mapping out against. I only wanted to prepare for 4 decks, which was Trace, Sigismar, Aphanis, and Kojo. I didn't want to prepare for anything else. So I like wrote, if I'm going first, what is everything I can do? What is everything they can do? And like, what do I actually want to happen for every combination of like 1, 2, and 3 cost cards? And then I did the same for going second. And then what was really curious to me was when I wrote them out, I came to the conclusion that, and it's funny because you don't get to choose play or draw or go first or second in this game unless if you're exactly playing a best of three.
Mhm.
I remember thinking to myself, like, and I double checked for like 10 minutes that I wasn't overlooking anything, like on the plane. And I realized that it has to be better for Kojo to go second against Aphanis. The reason why is because if they try to after you with a magical training, you actually do keep your sabotage card in hand going second. But if you go first, you don't, or you don't have to. But
Mhm.
they will lead on magical training, and then you just get it. Um, and if they moth to a flame as their first card, then you just get to like trade 1 for 1, and then you sabotage on turn two. So
Yeah.
either way, if you, like your sabotage cards are really good, and you can just play the normal game plan otherwise. The problem, and then the last one is if they lead on some single card, say even Conjuring Seal, you can make it so that way you don't have a reserve, or Conjuring Seal is not explicitly good, but you can still sabotage it. Then you can make it so that way if they would have to Nylum with nothing in the reserve, and
Yeah.
you have Kojo, you have Buddha and something else on the other side. So now they can't play Nylum on four, and like the most common way you would lose is Nylum on four, Nylum on five. Um, so that was really cool. Ironically, I read like a chat message in like after the tournament in like a viewers Discord that Keelan guy was who has played a lot of Aphanis was just like, oh wow, like it's like a 15% like swing to like choose to go first or second like in this, but maybe for other reasons or maybe not viewing the game the same way as Keelan guy or me. he ended up choosing to go first, and the game was very easy to win. It's true that they never saw magical training in the two games, which is obviously a very linchpin card. I do think from watching the replay, the game would have been closer if they did choose to go second, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how the top eight match went.
Yeah, definitely. And what I'm gonna take from your initial response of you being able to thrive under the pressure is that it's thanks to me for putting you on stream that you won. So
Yeah,
you're welcome. And then also
yeah.
obviously the other stuff as far as getting breakers, but that's the second part. When you went into
Either
the top cut or the top eight as a whole, did you feel like you expected to be there as far as your
mm,
preparation is concerned? Or was it more so just I'm happy to be here kind of thing? I know you mentioned once you hit the breaker, you thought maybe this is my spot. But
mhm.
as far as prep and everything getting there, did you feel like you could make top 8 and this is where you needed to be, or was there a different thought process?
Yeah, so I definitely differ from a lot of competitive card game players with regards to this. I guess my general like life philosophies are just slightly different. And I have like a group of best friends in Magic that we all like in one way or another share very similar life philosophies. And in terms of like the results, so one of my friends in this group I think phrases it the best. Going to a high level competitive tournament is a celebration of all the process that you've put into it, and then you see where that ends up. So it's not fair to ever expect to win the tournament or even be a favor from like our friend groups like philosophy. It's just, I put in all this prep, I put in this work, but if anyone signed up for the event, they deserve to win the event too. There is no I deserve this because I took off work for a week and like grinded like BGA all day. It's like no, like you signed up, you deserve it. Like
Yeah.
it's like saying, oh, like this person didn't deserve to win the lottery. It's like they bought the lottery ticket. Like I didn't. So, um, the other one is I think part of what caused me to improve as a card game player overall is I have a very, um, I guess, interesting like view of my own plays in games, which isn't for the people of like weaker mental or emotional fortitude. But my belief is if I lose a game, it must have been my fault. Like there must have been something I could have done differently. Either in deck construction, I could have slept more. Like there has to be a reason. Um, and then if I ever win a game, my mentality is that wow, I was lucky that none of my mistakes caused me to like lose. Which is funny because I feel like your average competitive player does the opposite. They win, I am great. They lose, that must be luck. But for some reason, I think somewhere in like college, I ended up like developing this mentality. So just any result that was in the positive direction, I am immediately grateful for because I don't think I deserve it for the two reasons that I kind of outlined there.
Got it. Going into the semifinals and the finals realistically at this point, and you mentioned a little bit about this as far as pressure and everything.
Mhm.
How much of it did you feel as far as being that close, knowing that a win or a loss at this point means either getting that grand prize that people realistically are there for, especially once you
Mhm.
get to the top cut, or not getting it? And yeah, you may get another prize, maybe not for Bravos because you guys got kind of shit on there. But, yeah, just being that close and then maybe not getting it or just being that one win away from getting that gold medal that you mentioned before, in this case, in the
Mhm.
form of a trip to France and being able to compete with some of the best players in the world.
Yeah. Well, I think I did a good job of like really bringing myself to the table in the top eight, where there were a lot of like jokes and like laughs, especially in the top four, which is ironic because I watched back the top four and it wouldn't have mattered, but I like made a mistake in game one and lost, but I didn't know it at the time. And then game two, in the second to last day, I it's funny because like Rune Folk and Freeloader like typed in like our AQZ chat, which I read later. They're like, wow, down a game, like I actually don't think like Rinku could win or whatever. And then like I end up winning, and like I was there, so like I knew I won and whatnot. And then I waited 3 days to rewatch like the whole tournament, and I got to that game in that moment, and I was like, I don't know how I win this. Like I know the result, I'm very thankful for it, but like I actually have no idea.
Right.
But even in those sorts of moments, it was still very like jovial, yeah, like lots of Maul chanting, Egyptian God Card, like whatnot. Um, and it's like, I don't do that to like knock people off their game. If anything, I love beating people who have truly tried their hardest and they can say, I tried my hardest and I lost. Like that's what I want. And I feel like, yeah, it's just like a really tough sort of environment sometimes for people. Um, I think once I won my top 8 match though, I think some amount of the I just seem to be able to convert, like, kind of like was like in my mind of just like, yeah, like I feel good about this. Like I'm pretty sure I can do this. Um, but I didn't feel pressure as like not really in my head or my shoulders or anything like that. I just felt like this intense desire to like focus and like enjoy the moment and everything that's like associated with that. In the finals, we had an interesting spot where Belteshazzar kind of like viewed my opening as a sign of weakness, but then I had like the exact punish for it. Like I actually had one of my best starts, and then we kind of talked about it like after the game. So I really like those types of like cordial moments. Um, I think one thing that was deeply important to me, and not everyone has card game backgrounds, but one thing that is sometimes a practice for certain people is that when you have some sort of qualifier event that like can go off and do all these like wonderful things is to you can traditionally like rearrange the prize split.
Yeah.
So what we actually did was we made it so that way second place got literally all the hero cards, all the OP boosters and whatnot. We both got the same things that we got, so say like the playmat and the tumults and whatnot. Obviously, I got the flight and the medal and the trophy, and then we actually split the Bravos card, the Tiny Gen. So he got the physical copy, and I got the digital copy, but winner would get the digital copy. So yeah, and that is like a concept that feels pretty natural to me because once again, you run into the silver medal problem, and I have way more silver medals than I have gold medals when it comes to like having played these games, and it just like burns for so many days, and really just anything that can help offset that. So like you know, like Belteshazzar is really good. I had myself at like 60% to win that match, like in 2 out of 3. And it's
Mhm.
just like, okay, like I know I could potentially just ruin this person's day, like in terms of like, they came here to do this. And I really want to do anything to soften that. Like it's funny because ironically, people I think tend to do the opposite. If they think they're a favorite, why would I like give more to second? But
Yeah.
just like in terms of everyone feeling better at the end of this, it's pretty obvious to me. So I think in terms of besides like table manners, I think just caring so much about how other people in the community feel is like very important. But yeah, the match was cool.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you mentioned it because I was gonna bring it up either way as far as you being nice guy Rinku. Not nice enough to just let him win because that trip's yours kind of thing, but nice enough to help out with the card at the very least, right?
Yeah, well, one thing that's ironic. So Belteshazzar has since joined AQZ, and we talked a bit both before the event and afterwards. Um, but what's ironic is actually Dallas weekend, but it was like in a hidden link. They released like Worlds details, and it turns out that he wouldn't have been able to go to Worlds because someone very important to him was getting married that weekend. So you can also believe things happen for a reason. And even if you told me that in the finals, I still would have given him all of the like. I would have done the same prize split. I wouldn't have been like, oh, ha, like let's play now.
Yeah.
So but yeah, maybe some things happen for a reason.
Yeah, back on that. And speaking of just like real quick aside before we wrap things up here, with that secret link or that hidden link for the world championship and everything, conquest,
Hmm.
you feeling good about that or you gonna need some more practice?
Um, so in general, like it seems like they're willing to take feedback from some of the players, and there's just like some discussions about if you know the competitors of Worlds and like people involved like might think things might be better for like a healthier meta and stuff like that. My personal stance on Conquest with a ban is that you would need the format to like exist in a very specific way to make that optimal. I am personally against it. I do think that if they make it that format, that plays more to my strengths. Like if they have Conquest with a ban, I think my probability of doing better at Worlds is higher. So I'm not even doing this from the stance of like my personal interest.
Sure,
I
sure,
think
sure, sure.
but I think Conquest Win 2 still no bans is a little bit cooler. Just, since I have the soapbox moment. So what happens is like some people argue like, okay, if you have like no bans, you just bring the top 3 meta decks. But what you could do is you could try to bring decks that you're trying to line up against another deck. Like you can have a tech deck. You can also bring a deck that is a little bit more experimental that you might evolve and understand after people publish their deck list or after playing a little bit in Worlds that this deck was actually wrong for everything except for exactly this lineup or something, and then you're not severely punished for bringing something experimental. If you bring something experimental and it fails in the strike format, you literally have to win with it, otherwise you can't advance.
Yeah.
The other problem I run into is I think that Conquest with a ban promotes you trying to build 3 of the same deck. So I'll just say this publicly and, you can record me, hopefully, as world champion, but
Censor this entire thing. Anyway, continue.
yeah, so, like, if they keep it as is, I'm literally gonna play Kojo, Sigismar, and Traced. I'm just gonna play 3 aggressive heroes, and then sure, they can ban one, I don't care, I just have the same strategy 3 times. I'll ban your thing that is good against aggressive decks, and I'll just try to beat the other 2. So, like, in a situation where one person brings rock, 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 and the other person brings rock, paper, scissors, like, what do we want the outcome to be is kind of how I analyze this. So if you have a ban, then I just ban your paper, and now you're playing your 2 worst decks against my single strategy.
Yeah.
But if you can choose your own decks, then you choose your 2 best decks against my single strategy. Therefore, I should have variety.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my soapbox. But either way, I'm pretty excited. I think it'll be a good time. I'm hoping to kind of rally some amount of through networking and stuff, some amount of American players to help me, print on demand or maybe some of their cards, just because I know that the French players have really large communities and access to just a few more uniques than I do. So I hope people are willing to rally behind me. I might start like a Discord or a group to see if people are willing to lend me cards for Worlds, but we'll
Help
see how.
Rinko win worlds.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, but overall, I think the tournament structure is really good. I really like the group pods and like the elimination brackets. I do like the idea of not just having be a single deck tournament. I think that is fantastic, and I think the concept of like these faction rewards and something, like something special that still incentivizes you to play with like your favorite factions and stuff like that is really nice. I think just yeah, the one tweak I would make is just make it no ban instead of ban.
Yeah.
But even if they leave it as is, I'm just happy that the event's happening. We've seen certain other card games announce a Worlds and then everyone goes in on it and then the Worlds never happens. So I'm just super happy. Yeah, I can think of 2 games that I was very highly invested in that didn't happen. So I'm just really happy that it's even happening. Like if they told me it was like single deck format, like single elimination, I would still be very happy.
Right.
So this is definitely better than that. So even though I'm critical of certain aspects of the format, I'm already like from the lens that this is fantastic that's happening. I'm very
There.
happy.
So should be fun to see how everything turns out. But wrapping things up here, for you, we'll start off with these last few things. Do
Yeah.
you have any advice to those looking to play competitively and replicate your success?
Yeah. So I do want to shift into commentary before World. So I'm hoping that I can do some commentary for uh BGI WCQs or Baltimore because I'd rather commentate than play.
Mhm.
And from even doing a few commentary pieces of commentary, it seems like I talk about things in a different way than other people. So just to try to share that in like a condensed portion. Um, I believe that there's 2 types of decks in Altered. There's the ones that care about the tumult, and the other ones I call them engine builders. So engine builders would be like Gulrang and Atsadi are like the easiest ones. Like they just view the tumult as a timeline of how long they have to set up
Mhm.
or get the game into a certain state. And then after that, like they're still not playing Altered in the same way the other like things are. It's just like I have finished. I can just play cards at random or at some point.
Yeah.
And then there's cards decks that like the tumult. So I think identifying like what the macro game plan is like pretty important. Like, is it a timeline? Am I trying to build an engine, or are we actually doing the race of like the hero trying to meet the companion?
Yeah.
So in the latter one, so not these engine building decks, I think the thing that people don't consider the most is the run out of the tumults. So the thing I actually spend the most time thinking is literally just what do I need on like which tumults and how am I going to approach the middle card that we don't know about because I can come in from either side and really just thinking about like actually like the stat points and the distributions um and yeah just trying to like line up things appropriately. So I think yeah, if you watch like some volume of games, it gets to be really interesting. Like, oh, how did this person navigate this to get a 2-1 on this day instead of a 1-1 and stuff like that, like in terms of advance. So, and yeah, I think just understanding how the tumult works. So I have one of my friends in Magic, one of my best friends in life, honestly, and like he will play alternate locals and is also going to Baltimore. And he said that that was the moment that changed everything for him. When like I would just keep on playing games with him, I'm just explaining to him, I'm just like, you do realize this is like Frog Prince territory, so like this has to happen. And then
Mhm.
he's like, wait, the game is the tumult, and I'm just like, yes. And then But it's funny because you like learn that as a mechanic, but like to be cognizant of factoring into your moves is like a little bit different.
Yeah.
So I think that's, and then yeah, watching replays with a curious lens, I think is important. So especially finding things that are against your intuition and trying to follow those players more. So I think those are my two biggest pieces of advice.
And then going into the last bit here, and you could kind of combine these two together a little bit as far as shout outs or promotions for anything and anyone. And then also, who do you want to get a world championship qualifier spot and meet you over in worlds and
Okay.
see what you got
Well,
there?
of
So
course, shout outs to any Jonathan fans out there. So Rinku, WatchWolf92. If you want to follow me, it would probably be at WatchWolf92. Even when I won the tumult, I still posted on, or not tumult. Well, I did that once too, but
yeah,
when I won the WCQ, I still posted it on my WatchWolf92 Twitter. So yeah, if you want to follow me and support me in those ways, that would be great. Shout out to my girlfriend Val. She's wonderful, very supportive. Yeah, when I told her I was 3-2 and dead, she's like, "No, commentary said the 5-2 can make it," and she also plays competitive Pokemon TCG, so she like knows some of the stuff.
mhm.
And as I always say, you like definitely have to trust a woman's intuition. So I like, yeah, so definitely very thankful for all her love and support. And she'll be joining me in Paris with these. She's making like a shirt that like says it's Rinku on it. It just has like pictures of me on it to
Nice.
support me,
I'll have
which is,
have her make multiple. I want one.
yeah. She said that this is the beta and she might do it. Not looking to like make a profit and stuff, but yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, kind of cringe, but I'm kind of excited for it too.
Yeah,
She showed me the design; it actually looks really good.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, definitely Val. Thanks for my best friends in Magic. So regardless of what game I'm playing, and they're really my best friends in life. I just know them through Magic, so it's easier to call them Magic friends. Huge thanks to Team AQZ for adopting me and being so nice. Thank you, Simon, for the Simon Mulan, and also having a lot of faith in me and kind of being a very large factor in me even joining Team AQZ. Thanks for everyone who was so happy for me doing well. So members of the team, but even just people that knew me from Board Game Arena, and like I'll still play in events and people are still giving me props. And the community, we do have a good community here. Like I really do enjoy the people. Um, and I want to say thanks to Equinox for really trying to build a game that is true to their values and also still listening to feedback and making adjustments. I think I can't speak to Waru, but I think all the changes I've seen are ones that A, I wouldn't have came up with, and B, are fantastic like choices of how to address a situation. So I really hope this game grows and is here to stay. And I hope this is the first of many world championships, also hopefully that I go to. In terms of people I want to see qualify, I do think All the Marbles is at the top of my list. The only downside is if he qualifies, then I probably can't borrow his uniques. So not that he said I could borrow his uniques in general, but I just think like, yeah, it's great that I'm like representing North America. Like all the marbles is the guy that should represent North America, like in my opinion. Like I'm lucky that ironically, like the person that came in ninth, so Idyllic from Team AQZ also, he actually beat all the marbles in the last round, and all the marbles had way better breakers than me. So if marbles would have won, he would have came in eighth or seventh, and I think would have been a favorite to take down the event. So I can't think of someone more deserving of like representing NA than marbles.
Agreed. I'm a big fan of old Marvels myself. I don't know what
Yeah.
other than that, that's all I had for you. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day. We talked a lot. We had a lot to go over, so we'll have plenty to watch here on the video for anyone that's watching this. I'm glad you stayed all the way. It's been a good time. Be excited to see Rinku in France as far as the World Championship. Hopefully, we can get another solid US representative over in Baltimore and maybe even Canada. I don't know if anyone's planning on going over to Montreal to go for that qualifier or not, but we'll see how that goes. Val, if you can print off another shirt, I want it. I'll be there in France. You don't even have to ship it to me. Just get it ready. But I understand if you can't. Seriously, Val, do it. Anyways, that is all for this Top Cut talk. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in play on the next day.